Hello and welcome to Rallen's Rant. I'm your host, Richie. If you don't know that by now, you probably have never listened to the podcast in the first place, but I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Colin Judge. Colin, first and foremost, is a friend of mine, and secondly, is just back from the Paralympics where he represented Ireland in table tennis. So there's a huge amount to get through. CJ, I'll refer to that if that's okay. If you want, I can mix that between you, CJ and Colin. But how are you getting on? I know you've just come back from your holidays, and how are things with you?
I'm good, Richie. Thanks very much for having me. Yeah, I'm feeling refreshed. This interview is well timed. I'm feeling a lot better than I was pre-Croatia. Yeah, feeling good. I needed a couple of days of recovery as well. Last few nights were pretty heavy on the drink and made the most of our time there. So yeah, I'm feeling better now and looking forward to our chat.
Absolutely, yeah. So it was, as I was saying, alluding to even before I did the introduction there. Like it's very much a conversation I've been very much looking forward to, and especially during COVID, where you don't necessarily get to see the people you want. Circumstances change, and our Christmas parties aren't. They're put on the back burner for a year or two, so we don't have the annual catch
I've
ups and
missed
stuff
them.
like that. Oh, I know, haven't we all? But I was thinking it's the same when I had other guests on, like what's the best opener? But I suppose just even from your own perspective, I think for a lot of people who maybe aren't kind of aware of your story, that's obviously what we intend to paint here in the best of our abilities. But like if you want to maybe take us back to, you know, your birth, your early days of your childhood, what was so, what were the challenges about that? What was so unique around that? That would be great, CJ, if you can.
Yeah, Richie. Yeah, so I was born with one arm and no legs. I was the first one born in Ireland with my condition. So obviously a big shock to everybody at the time. No less my parents who had no
Mm,
idea. My mum's a nurse and, they'd been through all the scans and, nothing showed up. And yeah, it was really difficult. Like, they didn't know what to do. It was just such a big shock for them. But I think they did an incredible job at dealing with it and setting me up in life. I suppose my earlier days, I wasn't really aware of my disability. Things are a lot simpler back then, and I
yeah.
was well able to keep up. And I obviously had great friends. You know me since I was, I think, 7. Isn't that when you came into the school?
I was, what was it, second, third class, yeah, dancing on tables.
yeah,
So that would have been around
yeah.
8 or 9,
Third class.
yeah.
Jeez, Mrs. O'Neill.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think in my earlier days I wasn't so aware of my disability. As I said, I was well able to keep up, and it was probably then in the teenage years that I started to notice that, that I was different, that there was a lot of things that I couldn't do. Obviously, you went to an able-bodied school. I would have been the only, person in a wheelchair in the school, and when you lads all started playing rugby and going to parties and doing this, that, and the other, I suppose I felt a little bit left behind, and I did struggle with my disability. Then started to feel quite down on myself, and then I suppose when I found table tennis, I never really looked back after that. It was kind of a sport that made me realize that for all the things that I couldn't do, that there was a lot that I could do. And then I suppose, like, it was you guys. You guys were playing the rugby, and I obviously knew that that wasn't an option for me. But I saw the joy that it brought you all, and I really wanted to be a part of it. I couldn't be a rugby player, obviously, so I remember I started off playing wheelchair rugby. That was the first sport that I ever tried competitively, and it was a lot of fun. But I wasn't very good at it, and me, I'm quite a competitive person,
Yeah,
and
fiery competitor.
yeah, but yeah, that's it. And I remember then trying out a few different sports. I was at a summer camp with my brother in UCD, and table tennis was the only sport that I could beat my brother at. And I felt, oh, I got to give this one a go now.
Yeah.
I like this. This is something that I can be good at. Something that I can use. My disability to my advantage. And I never really looked back after that. And I think a lot of the success that I've achieved in table tennis has definitely translated to other areas in my life. And So I think it was that point was a really, really key point in my life. For me anyway, dealing with my disability, obviously there's been a lot of challenges, and there still are even today. But I think my hardest times dealing with my disability would have been when we transferred over from the junior school to the senior school. There's a lot more students, I suppose. I wasn't as I suppose well in. It took a little bit of time to get used to the whole change. I'm sure for you as well, and for all the lads, it was a big change from our small little class, whatever it was, 25 to 100 in the senior school, and going to all the different classes, and I did feel a little bit of left behind, and yeah, I think it was once I got involved. I think people are a lot nicer than they seem, and I think we were particularly lucky with the lads we had in our year. I mean, I myself anyway feel that I was blessed really, and because I have a lot of mates that have disabilities, and that would have undergone a lot of bullying, and that was obviously never an issue for me. You guys were always there for me, but I still obviously felt left out at times, and that can't be helped. When I compare myself to the likes of you, and a lot of our mates are rugby players for Leinster and Ireland. These guys were some of my best friends, and it's really difficult for me to compare myself to that. And I suppose I felt a bit useless. I didn't have a sport. I couldn't go to any of these parties. I couldn't talk to girls. Couldn't even get out of the house. Enough confidence to get out of the house and have a drink with you all. But thankfully, we got over that, and I think that I owe a lot to table tennis for that. It gave me the confidence, and it really made me believe that I might not be able to do one thing, but I can find my own way of doing it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even after 27 years, don't worry, I still struggle to talk to women. So you're not the only one there. But yeah, it's a minefield. But it's interesting that you say a lot of those things and it is a fair point talking about the junior school to senior school, because there's a huge amount of different elements. Like in the junior school, you're in the same class all day, same yard. Senior school, you're in a different class every 40 minutes. You've got breaks, you've got extra curricular activities, other responsibilities and all that, different teachers, blah, blah, blah. And it actually does definitely make me think that there is a huge adjustment there to be made. And as you said, like everything got amplified, like say from a rugby point of view, that was a huge culture within the school. It's a great thing, obviously, about the school. It brings everyone together, blah, blah, blah. But did you find like that, like at that stage, was there a particular time, whether it was say in first year, and I know you said that there was a huge amount of help, there was so many friends there, and I know even sometimes I probably said too many stupid things in one class that made you laugh too much and maybe got you in trouble because you couldn't stop laughing.
You got me in a lot of trouble over the years, Richard.
I know. So for that, I do apologize. But
I couldn't control myself.
No, and I can never forget, and I'll have to bring it up, was the history class, the infamous history outburst, where it obviously started with me. A certain history teacher asked if the homework was done, and I obviously hadn't got it done. I was like, no, I don't have it done. And he was like, oh, yeah, that's just great. And then he's like, who else has not got it done? And slowly but surely, everyone put their hand up saying, no, bar a few exceptions. And he broke. And he started screaming. And I remember looking back to you, and you had that nearly like burst tomato face where you're just trying not to laugh, and then eventually just burst. Yeah. And he's like, get out of the class. But yeah, that stemmed from my lack of academic ability, would say. But to get back on track to what I was meaning to ask, you said there that there was a lot of comparison, and even today, myself, and I'm sure loads of people will compare themselves to co-workers, to other people in social media. You can always see something that you could be doing that you're not. But at that early age, as you said, there was a lot of stuff going on from a sporting point of view. We were going to parties, all that type of stuff. So was that something that initially was like the biggest challenge for you? Say like on weekends, you knew that people were going out to other people's houses and stuff like that.
Yeah, and obviously Wes was the thing back in those days.
Yeah. Well, you didn't miss much. That was a blessing probably in disguise.
No. Probably not. Probably not. The clubs are better in Navarre, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
but I suppose like yeah, to look at it positively. Like when you guys all started playing rugby, and obviously as you said, it's a big part of the school. Like it was pretty much every day after school, wasn't it?
Yeah, no,
So
pretty
it's like,
much. Yeah,
what do I do at that time, And like that was something I really struggled with, and it was for nearly a year. I think it was probably around, from the age of 12 to 13, and I knew that I had to find something, and obviously, you know yourself back then. I wasn't very good academically at all, either. I didn't have much of an interest in the earlier years of the senior school. It was
yeah,
only really when I started getting involved in table tennis that I felt, why don't I give the academics a go as well? But so I really had nothing. I wasn't really interested in my homework or whatever else. And when you guys were all playing rugby, I was going home to my mum and dad, and I knew that something it needed to change there. And I don't know what made me try it. There was probably, my mum and dad encouraging me. I would have had no interest in summer camps with my brother. But I
yeah,
remember that summer, going up to UCD, and I would have tried out a lot of different sports. Like I said, wheelchair rugby, wheelchair basketball, swimming. I actually couldn't really swim at that stage, but, now I really like swimming. But,
yeah.
everything I tried, I wasn't really interested in it because I wasn't like, I could say that I was doing it, but I couldn't really do it very effectively. And I suppose probably another thing about me. I don't have very much patience, and when I found table, when I found table tennis, it was. I felt like I'm not going to say I'm a natural table tennis player because I'm definitely not, but I felt that it was just such a suitable sport for me, and my disability. I loved the mental side of table tennis. I really liked that, I could be clever and outthink my opponent and kind of, you know, take the take the disadvantage away from myself. Obviously I'm at a disadvantage physically to someone if
Yeah,
I'm playing an able-bodied person, but I can play really really quick, close to the table and play quick and sort of take the time away from my opponent. And that's something that I can do, and that's something anybody can do, regardless of their disability or their age. If you're not very good at moving, well, you gotta play close and put the pressure on your opponent straight away. And it was things like that, and the whole strategy of table tennis, and how complicated it is, and how many different ways there are to play. I've developed my own unique style. I kind of I understood pretty quickly early on that I couldn't play the game that most table tennis players play. The fast topspin game from back far from the table. I can't really move very well. Obviously, in the wheelchair, I'm playing with my brakes on, and I just loved that that there was a way around that. Whereas I think with other sports like wheelchair rugby, I'm never going to be as fast as someone with two arms. I'm never,
yeah,
the way I suppose I just love the mental side of table tennis, and I love that there was different ways of playing, and I felt that I could adapt to that best, and I've no regrets looking back. A lot of times I question why I chose table tennis because obviously it's a minority sport here in Ireland, and other sports like swimming and athletics do get an awful lot more support. There's a much better setup. There's a lot more people involved, and that's, I suppose, something that's hard for me. There's not so many people involved in table tennis full stop in Ireland, but certainly not in the Paralympic area. And sometimes it's very difficult to motivate myself. It's very difficult for me to organize training. But for all the disadvantage and for all the things that have went against me, I just love the game, and I just couldn't bear to give it up. I've thought about it so many times, and I'm happiest when I'm playing, and I'm really happy and I'm proud of the progress that I've made over the last few years. But I still feel that there's a lot left in me, and I feel I owe it to myself and the sport to see it out and reach my potential.
yeah. Well, no, it's great to obviously hear that, and I think everyone, and this goes back to every single athlete I've spoken to, or someone related to a sport or a high performance business or culture, is like there is definitely those days where you do have doubts, and you're like, am I good enough? Is it worth it? Why am I getting up early, doing these hours of practicing and stuff like that? And I, I sense it nearly there that you were looking. You mentioned there like you tried rugby and other types of sports, but you found that with table tennis, there was obviously the talent point of view. There was the physical point of view. There was the mental point of view. And like I even remember rocking up to UCD after I used to play table tennis when I worked in the school every day. And I thought, if I can beat the best students in Michael's, I know CJ, he's practicing a lot, but, I'll take care of him. And I think I won the first point up in UCD. And I was like, CJ, you see, more practice needed. And you proceeded to absolutely destroy me then for the next several games. But that's kind of what I'm getting at there, is in like there wasn't any limitations there for you. You'd found a game that you could be on a level playing field. You could be in control of exactly what you're capable of. And did that, by actually being able to do that slowly but surely seemed to, like as you said, like elevate you and bring confidence and bring in new opportunities to your life?
Yeah. I mean, and even in Ireland, then when I would have trained for a couple of years, that then it was, it was really brilliant. I started to play able-bodied Leinster League, and that was something that I never thought would be possible for me to actually compete with able-bodied people, with no rules barred, no on a level playing field. I was able to compete with no limits, and that was what I always wanted to do, and I think it's the only way as well in Ireland. Obviously, the majority of my practice would be with able-bodied players, but I think that's really, really, it's something special about table tennis. I don't think there's many sports that, but I could do that anyway myself. Like if I'm trying to swim, and I love swimming as well. I swim quite a lot, but if I'm trying to swim as fast as an able-bodied person, well, it's never going to happen. But I think it's just really, really nice that I'm able to punch, above my weight in table tennis. I think it's a very interesting sport like that. There's lots of different ways of playing and finding a way to win. That's what I love about it. And yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the biggest thing that drew me to the game. It's a good one, and it deserves a lot more. It's one of my big goals, in the future, is to try and boost that profile and improve development in Ireland, for table tennis. I'd love to see more people playing.
No, absolutely. And just even before we go into nearly your escapades of the last year or two and a lot of the exciting things that have been happening, the other side of your life that obviously maybe isn't as covered as much as like the post-school life, where, for those of you not aware, because Colin's probably going to be too humble to not brag, but like you were a brainy type of guy. You did very well in the Leaving Cert. You were good at studying, while I was probably over in the corner annoying someone, not doing what I should have, and obviously paid the consequences down the line for that. But you did very well. You got through college. You were working for KPMG, I believe. And like, at what stage, or I suppose it's nearly a double question, like how did you find that whole experience of working for, a big company, and then ultimately making that decision where, I'm going to put that on hold and ultimately pursue this table tennis career?
I absolutely loved working. I loved the independence of it. I loved making my own money. I loved learning. It was really, really good. I mean, the doctors, they told my parents, my mum and dad, when I was born, that I was never going to work, that I'd need full-time care my entire life. And to think then that I was able to get up at 6, 7 in the morning some mornings, get ready myself, go to the gym before work, do a full day's work, and then play table tennis after work. I think I never thought that I'd be able to do that, if I'm honest.
Half the people I know wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah. So it's like, it was incredible. I worked in KPMG for 2 years in the actuarial department, and obviously very, very difficult. Trying to work and trying to study at the same time. I'm sure a lot of our mates know all about that. It's not easy, and then when you're trying to play table tennis on top of that, it's too much, But I learned a lot from my time in KPMG, and I want to get back to work. That's something that I'm certain about. It's something that I've missed the last 2 years. But I suppose I made the decision to leave work around the time that I was reclassified.
Yeah.
So I suppose for the listeners that don't know,
tell them about that. Yeah.
Paralympics, it's classified on the severity of your disability. So the wheelchair table tennis classes go from 1 to 5. one being the most physically disabled and five being the least physically disabled. And I was classified into class two at the age of 13 and presumed that it was something that was never going to change. But unfortunately, I won the European Championships in 2017, and I was up for a reclassification the following March. And nothing could have prepared me for what the doctors told me on that day. And it kind of sounds like nothing. And a lot of people, when I say that I was reclassified, it's like, oh, well done.
Yeah, promotion.
Promotion, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I knew what the news meant immediately. Your man said to me that, oh, we're sorry, we're going to have to move you up into class three. And I knew that. Well, firstly, it meant that I was going to be competing against athletes that were considerably physically stronger than me. I was going to lose my funding. I was going to lose my ranking. But worst of all, at this stage, even having won the European Championships in 2017, I'd missed the Rio Paralympic Games by one place, which I was obviously devastated about at the time. And now I was number 4 in the world, and I was like, I'm going to Tokyo. This is my dream. I'm going to go for gold. And to have that taken away from me in an instant. My qualification hopes for Tokyo 2020 were seriously in jeopardy, and this was before the games were postponed. Yeah. I went from number 4 in the world, so like an absolute cert for Tokyo, like someone who's aiming for a medal, to like number 29 in the world or whatever it was, which is someone who's well off qualifying. So that's very hard to put into words, and I don't want to go on about it too much because I'm sure you've heard, and I'm sure a lot of the lads have heard me bitching and moaning about it for a long time. But it was probably the most difficult things I've ever had to deal with. All that I've achieved and all that I'd worked for, I felt that they were taking it away from me. And I listened to Ross's podcast last week, and he talks a little bit about proving people wrong. And at this stage, I felt that I'd proved everybody wrong. I'd won the European Championships. I think a lot of people thought with my disability and with being from Ireland that I was never going to make it to the top in table tennis. And I'd just done that. I'd done it about a month or two, and then they put me in a new class, and suddenly I was average Joe again. And that was really, really hard to take. Like, nobody can really fully understand what that is. It's such a unique thing to be told that you're not disabled enough for the class, even though I was born with one arm and no legs. Now, none of that has changed, regardless of if I've gotten more mature, if I've gotten stronger, if I've worked on my physical. None of that changes the reality. And everybody thought that I was a class 2 at the age of 13, and now suddenly I'm class 3, and it's been one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to deal with. But having said that, there's been a lot of positives that have come out of it. I feel like I enjoy the game a lot more now. It's a lot more of a challenge, obviously. When I was reclassified, I realized very quickly that I had to become better. I had to challenge myself in new ways. And in class 2, I suppose I got a little bit of it comfortable and quite protective of what I had. I was one of the best players in the world. I was on good funding, and I felt like, God, I've got quite a lot to lose here. And I suppose I was young at the time, obviously, and I kind of looked at it quite negatively. I felt like that I just needed to hang on and that I'd get there eventually. And I was so afraid to lose. There was nothing more important. I didn't care if I enjoyed. I didn't care how I won, as long as I won. And I wasn't challenging myself. I didn't want to even try a new serve. I didn't want to develop my forehand as my weaker side. If I could play every shot with my backhand and win the match, I didn't care about my forehand. And I think with that sort of attitude, you're never really going to progress. You're never really going to make it to the top. You're certainly not going to be the best you can be, regardless if that's number 1 in the world in class 2. I'm confident that I would have got to that anyway, but I wouldn't have ever got to my best. And that's the big key. And that's something that I've learned in the last few years, that it doesn't matter how I'm measured. I know that I'm 10 times the player that I was in class 2, even though I was number 4 in the world, and I was European champion, and I think I was hands-on for a medal in Tokyo. But I've come back from Tokyo now. I haven't won a medal, but I'm really happy with how I performed and how I prepared. And I know that my performance in Tokyo, there's quite a big difference in level between class three and class two. And, I know that if I'd stayed in class two, I never would have been able to compete with these guys the way that I did. And, I'm really confident that if I just need a little bit more time, that was the biggest thing that was so difficult about the reclassification. Like it came in 2019, and that's obviously I'm going on a bit of a rant here, but that's
No,
why
I
gave
enjoy it.
up.
It's Rallen's rant for a reason.
Okay, yeah, I know,
Yeah.
I see that. Okay, well suited to me then. And so it was around that time then that I decided I couldn't work anymore. I had to up my training. I had to go over to Germany. I had to go over to France. I had to even go to China. And I just felt that I wanted to commit 110% because it's just not good enough anymore. I'm not happy to be number 29 in the world, and I don't care wherever it takes me. I want to know that I gave it my all, and so that was my I made my decision. It was a tough decision at the time, if I'm honest. Like looking back, it was a no-brainer, but I suppose at the time I was on a good salary. I was getting better at my job. I was comfortable enough, training three or four times a week, pretty chilled, and you know, rake in the money from Sport Ireland, and I felt that I was coasting, and I gave up a lot, I suppose, giving up my job and then losing my funding with Sport Ireland after being reclassified. It was all a big sacrifice, but I'm really really happy with the progress I made. I feel I've come on a really long way. Obviously, the game's been postponed. I know it was hard for a lot of athletes, but for me, I suppose it gave me that extra year, and I felt that I used that year very well. I've changed a lot of things about my game. My racket and the rubbers that I play with. I've changed my wheelchair, my seat back, my posture, and everything has changed. And I know that I'm twice the player that I was back in 2017, regardless of how many medals I'm winning. And I feel like I still have a long way to go. I'm still learning, even from Tokyo. I've learned that I'm sitting a little bit too high, and I know there's little adjustments that I can make to my game that can get me over the line. I felt I was really, really close in that last 14 match. You and a lot of the guys probably were following the score. I went 2-0 down to the Russian. He's one of the best players in the world. And, I came back 11-3 in the third set, and I had 6-2. And I shouldn't have let that lead slip. I let it slip. I lost 3-1. But I'm very much in that match. A better start, or even closing out that fourth set, and we're going into the fifth set. The odds are in my favor, and it's things like that I need to work on. I don't really need to reinvent the wheel anymore. I'm happy with my game, but I just need to be 110% focused when I'm there. Obviously, the occasion probably took from my attention a little bit, even though I felt that I coped quite well with all of that. Being a table tennis player in Ireland, I suppose I'm not really used to playing in front of crowds.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so that did take a little bit of adjusting. Obviously, it's nothing like what it'll be in Paris, so I better get used to that.
Yeah.
The world will be a different place, hopefully. But
Yeah. Fingers
it
crossed.
was an incredible experience, and I learned from it. And I'm really, it's given me my motivation back, because I think the biggest thing that I missed, throughout COVID and the lockdown was competition. That's what I love the most, and that's why I play table tennis. I think that's why a lot of us involved in sport do what we do, is to compete, and especially at the top level, it's a privilege to have been able to do that. And it's really whet my appetite for more. And I'm lucky as it's only a 3-year cycle now.
Yeah.
And
It's
my
great.
season starts. I'll be starting in the Bundesliga next month, and I've lots to look forward to and to strive for.
Yeah. No, and it's inspiring how, like, even the start of you talking there to the end, like you talk about how you had that huge setback with the classification restructuring, we'll say. And like, I talk to so many people, and this is work related. This is, as you alluded to, even with Ross and the guys who are at high level sports. There's, no matter what you're doing, there is going to be a setback. Like, no matter what thing you're in, you're going to fail at some stage. And to sound like Rocky Balboa, you just got to keep going on and getting the win at the end of the day. And I've alluded this to, and I'm sure you've been told this a lot, where like you inspire people, your positivity it's unrivaled in some cases. But like, how I relate to that, when I hear that, I immediately think to when I was 21 and a half. And this is no sob story. This is just for perspective on the question I'm about to ask. But like, I'm 21, think I'm king of the world, wake up the next day, I'm in Vincent's hospital, type 1 diabetes is at my front door, my pancreas has stopped working, I'm thinking life's never going to be the same, blah, blah, blah. A lot of things, as you alluded to earlier in the podcast, you won't be able to do this, you won't be able to play rugby anymore, you won't be able to do this, that, the other. And that's when I look back, even now at 27, 6 years on, and a bit how you alluded to there with your classification and the adjustments you've made and the challenges you've faced. I genuinely wouldn't change that. If I could go back to the day before where I was a non-diabetic and I didn't have these complications to deal with every single day, I actually wouldn't take it. I actually would say, no, I actually want it, because the challenges I've had to overcome with that have made me better. It's made me more mentally tough. It has made me appreciate the little things more. And as you said, there was some things that you couldn't do, but there was a hell of a lot of stuff you could do. And I suppose what I'm getting to ask here is, because as I said, everyone relates to it in different ways and have their own challenges, whatever that may be. But when, say, for instance, you have your bad days, or if it's the classification issue, or if it's the big losses on the table tennis court, or whatever it may be, like what's your go-to give you that lift? Is it simply, I need to get back to the table tennis, play that'll get my endorphins going? Or is there a process? Or is there something you kind of think of, you know what, I'm grateful for this? Or is it maybe even a support structure like friends and family?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's a little bit of all those things. Like I remember when I was reclassified, I was obviously devastated and I didn't want to talk to anybody for weeks. But after some reflection, I thought back to, I remember when I first started table tennis, and I went over to Germany, and the guys used to call me a tourist, because
Yeah.
I
Oh,
had
for
a
a quick
funny racket,
holiday.
and I was from Ireland, and I couldn't really play table tennis. Like, let's call a spade a spade. In comparison to them, anyway, I thought I was good, but I definitely wasn't, and that really kind of struck a chord with me. I thought back to that, and it was like those guys didn't take me seriously at all.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know how many years later, 4 or 5 years later, I won the European Championships. And I thought back to that moment, after a few weeks of, sitting in my
Partying.
bed and crying. Yeah, that too, drinking. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That probably got me through a bit. But I thought back to that time, and the time I heard the Irish national anthem, playing in a table tennis hall. Like, it's not something that I ever imagined would happen. And it was that moment that, I've done this once. I've proved everybody wrong once, and you know, all those people that said that you won't beat the top guys with that technique, or you're never going to compete in class two with your disability. You've too severe of a disability. You're at a disadvantage, or you're from Ireland. They don't give you the support.
Yeah, the
You don't have
paddies have
good
no
players to
chance.
play. Yeah, no chance. And I did that, and I suppose when I encounter tough times, I try and think back to the good times, and the times that I've overcome setbacks, and that really gives me the strength to go on. And I think everybody has their own version of a good time. Everybody has overcome something. Nobody gets here where it's like you said, nobody has a smooth ride through life. No matter how good you think someone has it, they have their problems. And it's like you said, and when you got your diabetes, it made you stronger, and it made you appreciate the things that you have. And
Absolutely.
I'm still really lucky I can play table tennis as a sport. There's people like I don't have to look very far to see people a million times worse off than myself. And I think it was my mum and dad as well, which they've obviously been a massive support for me. Never mind when I was born, but even onwards, continue all the way through my life. They've always been there for me, and that's the way that they looked at it. That I have to be grateful that I've proved so many people wrong. That who would have ever thought that I could live the life that I live today. And and then I suppose it's the mixed with that is the belief that I've done this once. I've won the European Championships once, and okay, now I'm measured differently. I'm in a new class, but I've had to reinvent myself, and it took time. It took me, I don't know how many years, 5, 6, 7 years maybe. I was playing when I won the European Championships, and it's not going to happen overnight. I always knew that Tokyo 2020, I thought, to be honest, that maybe I could prove everybody wrong straight away. I could win a bronze medal.
Yeah.
And I feel that I'm at that level, but I knew that it was too soon. I didn't have a full cycle. I didn't have enough time to prepare. Especially not in my new class. I haven't played a lot of the top players, but I'm learning all the time. And I feel I'm progressing all the time. And I really believe that if I keep going the way I'm going, I'll get to where I want to go to. I think my biggest strength, for everything that's went against me, for all my bad habits, for living in Ireland here, trying to play table tennis, but wherever I am and whatever I'm doing, I'm always thinking about table tennis. Like I'm absolutely obsessed. It's my biggest passion. I'm always trying to find a way to be better, and I really do believe that I can make it to the top. And I think not many athletes, not many players have that belief in themselves. And I'm not the best player. I'm definitely not good technically. I have a lot of things, a lot of faults, a lot of things are not good about me as a table tennis player. But I do have the love for the game, the passion, and I do have that belief that I can be one of the best. And
Yeah.
that's what keeps me going. And I it's like what Ross said. I'm desperate to prove that to people.
Yeah, no, here to that. And as you said, you've done a pretty good job up until this point, and hopefully in a few years' time, we'll maybe unretire the podcast so I can talk about your next
I
big
like
win. But
it.
with regards to the Paralympics, it was some journey, and as I said, like there was people chatting in WhatsApp groups at ridiculous hours on Mondays and Tuesdays, being like, "Oh, he's winning! Oh no, he's losing! Oh, he could have won that point! Oh, did you see that winner?" And it just people who would never even dream of being up that late, let alone watching table tennis, were glued to their screens, or else watching live updates if they couldn't get it, which was great to see. And like that
Amazing, yeah.
was that was just my circle. I'm sure all over Ireland and people you knew were doing the exact same. And for some are aware, where there was qualification to the Paralympics where you fell slightly short on that, but then there was an invitation that eventually got you to compete over there. And as you said, there was ups and downs over with your experience. There was some regrets, but then there was also the kind of hindsight of saying, those small margins, I maybe was a year too early for me, but, I still had a shot. There was still an opportunity there where, maybe if I took my chance, I could have gone that extra round, or I could have even gone further into the competition. But how do you reflect on that? Because as we said before we went live on air, you've had a holiday, you've had time to think about things that are not related to table tennis. You've had time to think about the good and bad times you've experienced over the last several months. Like, what do you collect from that whole experience? Because as you alluded to, it's definitely overall been a hugely positive experience.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm glad that I had the holiday before this interview. It probably would have been a very different answer
Yeah,
had
different
I not.
perspective.
But yeah, I mean, what can I say? Like from the day we took off, just even for me being part of a team, that was really really special. Even and I felt that in the airport in Dublin. You know, we were all we were taking pictures together. I was even meeting some of the athletes for the first time. I suppose being a table tennis player can be quite lonely at times, and a lot of the times it's just me and my coach. Sometimes it's just me that travel away, and to be part of such a big team, such a high level team, so many great athletes. That already really motivated me to prepare my best in those final few weeks. And then when we got over there, we went to a holding camp in Narita, so we went out to Japan quite early. So Narita is a different city to Tokyo. We were staying in a nice hotel, and we had perfect training conditions, and even just being part of that, having the meals with the team every day, kind of sharing our experiences on the training, what our plans were. Like that was absolutely incredible for me, and that's not something that I've ever had. It's usually just me and my coach kind of
Yeah.
talking shite around the, around the
Like
breakfast
the rest of
table,
us, mind you.
slagging each other, But like it was just so interesting to hear other people's perspectives, and that's really made me grow. I've learned from that, and it's really motivated me. Some of the athletes, some of their performances over there. it's really given me the belief that, if they could do that in a country like Ireland, that maybe don't get the best support in the world, that, why can't I do it? And, I think being part of a team, certainly at the holding camp, that was the biggest thing for me. I felt really, really good going into the event, and I was really, really looking forward to it. And then I remember getting to the village was kind of surreal. Seeing all the different flags, all the different countries. So many different people, all walks of life, all parts of the world, with different disabilities. Hanging out at balconies and cycling along the road. Like, it was just absolute chaos. And this is all during COVID. Like, bearing in mind we've hardly seen any people in so long, and that was just absolutely unbelievable. I remember taking pictures at the Paralympics logo, and just going down the street with all the flags, and then the beds, the cardboard beds, and with Tokyo 2020 on them. All of it is just like, it's hard to put into words. I think, like, I know that the Olympic Village was quite literally a bubble this time, a COVID bubble, but I do feel like it's in any year, it's probably a bubble from outside the rest of the world. It's hard to explain it. It's like you feel like you're in a different place, a different world, and it was really, really, really special, and something that I'll never forget. And then going for dinner in the food hall, like, absolutely incredible. I've never seen a place like it.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite part was when I started training then, in the Metropolitan Gymnasium in Tokyo. And I mean, that's the best venue that I've ever played table tennis in. Like, that, it's just absolutely incredible. In Ireland, I'm very quick to complain about the conditions, because they're really substandard. But this was absolutely unbelievable. Like, I not even me could find something wrong with it, And I'm very particular about where
you sound like Roy Keane turning up to that World Cup, being like, the facilities are a joke.
Yeah. But no, this was really, really unbelievable. Like, and I mean, I'd just say it would have been magic, to share with my family and friends, But like I said, hope Paris is really, really, it's around the corner. But playing in that arena, like, it was just so hard. Like, everything was red. It was just the lights, the table, the bounce of the ball, the feeling. It was just absolutely incredible, And I felt really, really good in the practice day. And then I got the draw. Obviously, China, probably not the country that you want to draw in your first match at the Paralympics. This is his 6th Paralympics. But I was in the match. It was very, very close all the way. Like, I think experience prevailed in the end. I let the match get away from me a bit, but, like, I was winning at one stage, and I really had a chance to create an upset. Like, I think that my first match, I was a little bit nervous. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I had a game plan. I stuck to it, but I think the start of the match is the key for me. Really, I just kind of, my attention, I lose my concentration, I think, in the earlier parts of the match, and I let that match go away from me. And then you guys might have heard after that, it was absolute madness. My next match against the Brazilian opponent, he actually failed a drug test.
We saw there was complete confusion in the WhatsApp. They're like, Colin, stop playing.
I'm still confused about it, and I don't want to talk much really about it, because I actually don't know the details. But it was just such a shock to me, And I was disappointed about it, and I'm not being funny about that. Like, I didn't travel across the world, to sit in my bedroom watching Netflix. I was
exactly.
I really wanted to play, and I felt that this was the match that I could win. But I was disappointed I didn't get my opportunity to play that match. I think it really would have stood to me in my next match against the Russian in the last 14. And against the Russian, he beat me in Slovenia in the semi-final, and so I know him quite well. He likes to shout a lot. I'm sure you guys might have seen that on the news.
Saw the videos, saw the photos.
What do you think of his hairstyle?
No comment.
Not the best. But I mean, this was a really, really good match. Like, I played probably my best level ever. It was really, really close, and I'm just kicking myself. 6-2 in the fourth set. He did 2 unbelievable serves that I barely touched the ball. And, it could have been such a different game, and I just wish I had to play for that fifth set. And, I dreamed of a quarterfinal match and to fight for a medal, but it wasn't meant to be. I lost to the better player in the end. But I was there, even if I look from my performance 2 months previously to him in Slovenia, like he won 3-0 very easy. I wasn't really in the match at all. And, I was leading in the fourth set. I had a chance to even things up, and, I didn't take it. But it was like these little things that I talked about earlier on. Like, I know where I went wrong, and I know where I can improve. And that's what I have to do if I'm to compete with these guys at the top level. Like, I think the biggest thing about being in my new classification is like the margin for error is just tiny. Like, you can't afford to have a bad start. You can't afford. It's obviously never impossible to come back. But in my old class, I always backed myself 2-0 down. I had so many bad starts, but I always managed to find a way to win. And, I haven't quite got to that point in class three. Certainly not against the top players, but, I'm finding my way. I'm getting closer, and, I'm really confident that next year I'll start to push for top 10. And, Paris, I'm hoping to push for a medal. That's my goal.
Yeah. And I can even sense it, not only with your words, but like you're driving that disappointment, but you're also flipping it in such a way where there's a huge amount of positives you're taking from that, where you're like, I've learned a huge amount, and that will drive you on short term, and then also towards that Paris goal of yours. And I was chatting to even Ross about it, as you alluded to there. Like, is that ultimately where your mind stops? Is Paris? Like, is that the big goal, and then obviously take little goals in between that? Like, the future for you, is that what it looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, that doesn't mean that Paris is going to be my last game. I mean, you know how much I love
Absolutely,
table
yeah.
tennis, and
Just getting
table
started.
tennis. It's yeah, you can continue on at table tennis. There's lots of good players that are older, But I mean, do I think that I can peak in Paris? Yes. I mean, I think that I'll be at the pinnacle of my career. I hope for Paris 2024. So yeah, I absolutely would plan to peak in Paris. That doesn't mean that it's going to be the last, but I think, yeah, like you said, I'm not thinking far beyond Paris. There's obviously LA 2028 and Brisbane 2032, pretty
Yeah.
cool places, but I think Paris will be amazing. The world will be a different place, and I just yeah, it's like you said. Now the goals in between that, I've got Bundesliga next month. It'll be really nice to get back competing. Irish competitions are going to start again next month, which will be great to have them back. I don't need to travel to go to them. I've really missed them. And then I'll have more international competitions next year, and hopefully qualify for the World Championships. Maybe even fight for a medal for that. Would set me up very well for Paris 2024. But I'm aware that like three years, and it's less than 3 years now. It's not that long. It's not a
No.
very long time. It's a lot shorter than 5 years anyway.
Yeah.
And I know I need to be ready. I can't afford to waste time. But I'm very clear on what I want to do and what my plan is. And I'm just I suppose it's like what you said. That disappointment of losing in Tokyo 2020. Like, that was really, really hard. Like, I didn't talk about that very much. Like, I obviously with COVID, you're not really able to enjoy the games experience
Exactly. Yeah.
like before, like Rio or London or whatever. And like it was very hard. Like, I didn't want to be sitting in my bed watching that quarterfinal match. It was again. I actually would have been playing against one of my best friends in the quarterfinal. I would have been given anything to be there. And it's not what I want, is to be watching these matches, or certainly not even watching the final. I went to the arena for that. There really wasn't much to do after I lost, and I suppose I got quite down, and that's really, really given me the motivation. It shows to me, how much it means. I hadn't had that feeling. I hadn't lost in a long time, and it's like what you said before. I think a lot of the time is it's the losses that we learn the most from. And when I remember back to class two, when I was winning, and I wasn't really listening to anybody. I didn't care, and that was a very bad attitude that I had. And I was young, obviously 19, and I felt, well, I'm winning, like, so I don't really need to worry about much else. You just go through the motions. But you really question yourself when you lose. You really look to ways to improve, and that's what you have to do, win or lose. You have to always try and be your best, and that's what I'm going to try and do for Paris 2024. And after that experience in Tokyo, I'm really clear on what I need to do and to make myself peak in Paris and to fight for that medal, be the first for Ireland. That's the dream.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's hopefully the dream that comes to the fore, and we get to see it in a few years' time. But no, listen, like Colin, as I said, there's so much to unpack there, and I do obviously want to thank you. There's a few quick fire questions here we'll plow through to finish off, but no, that's more or less it from me from a serious point of view. And for anyone listening, I'm sure they can take a lot from what you were chatting about, and then also to keep an eye out for you, because as you alluded to there, if it's not, say, if you look at, say, women's sport, that's been huge coverage over the last couple of weeks with the success, even in the golf there as well. And then, as you said, with relation to the Paralympics, there was so many different athletes that every time I looked at the Irish Times, it was either yourself, it was other athletes constantly getting praise and constantly getting the support and traction needed. So if anyone wants to keep an eye out for you, I'll plug all the social medias, do not worry. And sure, it's
Thanks, my friend.
everywhere I look on Irish Times 42.ie as well. The big events are getting covered, which is great. But I just want to thank you first and foremost for just being honest and being upfront there. It is definitely something that a lot of people will enjoy. And then to follow up on that, there are a few silly little quick fire questions we need to polish off before I can let you go and enjoy the rest of your Monday.
I should sign off now.
Yeah. So this one it's quite controversial. I haven't actually asked it for a while, but your favorite teacher in St. Michael's?
That is a difficult one. Junior school and senior school?
I'll just say senior school, make it somewhat less difficult.
That is a good question. Like, best crack I'd say we had was probably with like Bomber or Robbie O'Flynn or one of those lads. Best teacher probably Jason Kelly. Funniest class. Oh, that's got to be like Mrs. O'Neill, maybe Miss Cosgrave. What do you think?
Oh, Miss Cosgrave,
Mr.
yeah,
Kenny's
for Spanish.
right up there.
I'd say Miss Cosgrove for Spanish. There was an energy in that room that was it very
there was
much.
About 8 of us.
And
you think?
Half of the people were doing ordinary level and had no interest in learning Spanish. Well, lads like yourself were like, we're trying to do honors here. Can you stop just screaming at people?
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Well said. And if you have a pump-up song before a big game or a big training session, whatever it may be, what is that? What's your go-to pump-up song?
Eminem. Lose Yourself, and what's the other one that I listen to? You probably know it.
There's a few.
Got me out here. I'm trying to.
There's Drop the World, Cinderella Man.
They're all good. There's Lose Yourself, and there's one of my go-tos. You know the song. I won't sing it here now, but
yeah.
Lose Yourself.
We'll go there. That's the ultimate.
Before my match in Tokyo.
Good stuff. And what's your favorite film of all time?
Oh, it's a good question. Yeah, I think it's between two, and maybe I think Forrest Gump is right up there, along with Shawshank Redemption. Forrest Gump, I love it, and I watched it recently with my dad actually, and obviously the tail the little part about tail dance made me a little bit biased there, but they're my two favorites. Yeah,
two great films. I don't think anyone will dispute that. If you go and get a coffee, what will you be ordering?
Well, I'm on a diet now. I've gotten fat after my holiday.
Screw diets. I don't care about diets.
Black Americano.
A what?
Okay. I'd take a black Americano or a flat white, depending where you are. I don't like to chance the milk in some places. I think Ireland, to be honest, like, I'm going to go out and say, like, Ireland does not have good coffee. Like, I've just come home from Croatia. Like it's a different world. And also it's a third of the price. Like,
yeah, the price is getting ridiculous.
Like,
no, price
Italy,
is getting ridiculous.
Croatia, Spain. Like, I mean, you're paying €1 for a coffee, and it's much nicer. Like, firstly, the coffee is too hot here.
Yeah.
Like, they burn the beans. I'm sorry. Like,
we have Colin Judge, Paralympic athlete and coffee expert as well. Or critique, I should say.
I'm a big fan of coffee.
But I
And I
agree.
drink
I
it.
agree.
Don't get me wrong, but like the price of it, and they need to take more care. If you're paying 3, 4 bloody
Four
euros for
euro
it,
and
like
three a fee.
they'd want to get it right, like.
Yeah. No, I agree. I absolutely agree. So all coffee shops, listen up to that.
Take note.
Yeah. So what else is there? So I asked a similar one to Ross the other day. What's the funniest or strangest thing you have seen on, say, a table tennis table?
Ho ho ho! Gosh, that is. Let me think about that one. Like, I think the most amazing thing,
Yeah,
and I'm sure it's something you've seen, is Ibrahim Hamasu, the guy who plays with his mouth.
absolutely
Uh,
outrageous. Yeah,
like that is like I met him and his wife in Egypt, and he served to me, and I couldn't receive a serve. Like, like that is like the most shocking.
yeah, shocking for all the right reasons.
Yeah, I have to try and think about the funniest one. Yeah, it's hard to think on the spot.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of things you
Funny.
just laugh at that aren't necessarily funny.
Yeah, they aren't necessarily that
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, no, not at all. I have to come back to that one. Do you have more questions? Funny table tennis.
Listen, there's no huge pressure if you don't have it. But as I said, for any of those who haven't seen that, you need to look up those mouth serves. They're like
absolutely insane, And if I do think of a funny moment, I will tweet it in the reply.
yes, exactly. And last but not least, this is always the tough one. Describe yourself in 3 words.
3 words.
Yeah, I don't give you a lot, unfortunately.
No. Happy, resilient, and friendly, I'd like to say.
Yeah, I'll vouch for those. I'll give you a reference. I'll write you up a reference on those 3. But Colin, no, listen, first and foremost, I want to thank you so much for coming on. As I said, this is pretty much the last roll of the dice when it comes to the podcast, having guests on. So it was great to chat with you. As I said, some of the stuff I've chatted to you about in the 20 years I've known you, I've got new insights and new things to, appreciate. And yeah, I just want to wish you all the best. As I said, we'll definitely be keeping in touch and wishing you all the best in the upcoming competitions and your journey towards Paris and hopefully beyond. But yeah, as I said, thanks just for being honest and open with your experiences and your opinions. And yeah, all I'll say is good luck with the future and hopefully the coffees improve.
Thank you very much, Reggie. I hope so too. And it's been an absolute privilege and pleasure to be on. And I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely.
And thanks for listening, everybody.
No problem. Anyway, take care, Colin.
Thank you.